Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am extremely happy to know that you are all planning this what you call that just now, communication and trust, yes, and for the Muslim world. This is it's a great task. It's not a simple matter. It's very, very difficult, because not all Muslim countries sometimes may agree with us. And that's what happened in the past. And that is, for example, the Arabs in those days, they created the Arab League, isn't it, to begin with. It only lasted a few. Of course, I'm not comparing this with them, but after that they have this what do you call it, OIC, and then they try to control people, and they are not really what you all are planning, because I know that, and also because of, I think the only way is, it's not just for me. We of course will pray for your success, but also for Allah's barakah on you, and for Allah's aid, because He knows that this is not a simple matter, and that His aid must be necessary for this. It's only with that, I think, because according to my experience, personal experience, it's only when you are sincere in your task that Allah knows, and He will aid, and He does aid. And therefore, He always answers your prayers. And I, of course, am all the time praying for your success, and praying for example, how are we going to think about the Muslim world today? For example, of course, Turkey, and then you have Egypt, the ones I think which are perhaps the possibilities for you. And Egypt is a big place. Egypt, and maybe this part of the world, the Southeast Asia, possibly Morocco, I don't know. But other parts of the Muslim world, I don't know. And there's a lot of them have a lot of influence sometimes, but so far not on us, as far as we know. And so if I can think of what countries perhaps that are relevant, it's only, as I mentioned just now, Turkey, Egypt, this part of the world. Even this part of the world, they know that this is a very big part of the world, but they know that a lot of the people are still rather confused, you see, except those who are listening to us. That's why they send emissaries here to spy on us. To learn English is very important, especially for our people in Turkey, because I think in my case also, in the beginning, for example, when I first came here, I had to think how to talk to these people. First, I talked in their language. I became more excellent in their language than them. That is only possible because of that. it is possible for them to listen to me. That means one has to excel in the language in which you are no. And then on top of that, later on I realized, after I succeeded a little bit, then I realized all I am talking about, my message, is not just referring to this part of the world. I said it's all referring to the rest of the world, all the Muslim world. And therefore, because of that, I said I have to speak in English, because English is known by all the Muslims everywhere. And not only that, we have to speak English, we have to also try to understand their culture. I know it is very difficult, but still it will take time. It doesn't matter. With Allah's grace and His guidance and His loving kindness, because He knows we are sincere, we need trust. And because of that, inshallah, He must grant us barakah, many barakah. And I'm very happy, at least, that then there is another matter that I've been talking about, about this religion. But you know that, Your Excellency, that when we have to speak about truly religion, the truth about religion, because this al-haq, that verse that says, for example, Alhamdulillahilladzi arsala rasulahu bil huda wa dinil haq. Now that dinil haq, this word haq has got a double meaning. And one of them is, it means truth. But then another one, it means true. So that the truth and the true are actually the same. So that if you translate that into English, you can say that to begin with, praise be to Allah who has sent His messenger with guidance and the religion of truth, or with guidance and the true religion. The meaning, of course, become more emphatic. Because people still talk about that. People still ask questions like, what is the worldview? What is the meaning of worldview? But then all these things, if they analyze the word deen, the word dana, they will know exactly what we mean by civilization, by culture, worldview. That's what's happening. Allahu Akbar. And then you see there is the question of education, the question of of course, secularization, that you have already heard about these things. But it's not yet understood everything about this secularization. What is secularization? This secularization, they are copying the Muslim, because what Islam does, to begin with, is something like secularization. Wherever Islam goes, the first thing it converts is the language. The language. This is what these secularists and so on, they borrow from Islam. Only the way they are doing it, of course, they change the words. That's what Islam does. Islam change the words, except those words that do not contradict the Muslim understanding of culture, civilization, the religion, trust, and communication. Then that one, they remain unchanged. They include that under Islam. But the others, they change. This is what secularization is doing. It's taking away and changing all things very subtle. And then people are not realizing it. And they talk with each other, although they are the same nation, same, and yet the meaning is different. They don't understand each other correctly. They quarrel with each other. They disagree. So these are the things that I think the question of Islam, and that is why we are talking about I did say about Islamization. And this Islamization, of course, it means that we have to know about how Islam does all these things. We have to know. Obviously, the question of communication, about trust, we have to know this, and to, if we, wherever we go among the Muslims, Muslim countries, we have to be dealing with these things. We have to be discussing this with them. And they might have some ideas. Because there was a time when, for example, in Egypt, recently, an important person was important in Egypt, but then he said that he said that what you call that there is no the question of knowledge. They said knowledge is knowledge, and they talk like the knowledge is knowledge, but then they don't realize that there are two kinds, two meanings to that. Because you say knowledge is knowledge, what you are meaning is that it is neutral. In other words, knowledge is just knowledge. Whereas what we are trying to say is that it is not neutral, because it depends on how it is interpreted. If it is interpreted in another way, then it is not the kind of knowledge that we consider to be neutral. I think it was the Mufti who said that before. And I know the Mufti, he came here too. He said knowledge is knowledge, but I said to him, but you give fatwa, yes. Another fatwa that you give sometimes contradict what you are saying. Because to do that, you have to say that, you know, we think this is how that means. That means our understanding of it. That means, therefore, you can't have the anthropologists and the sociologists. Their understanding is different. I mean, we know very well. The proof of that is very clear. Anthropology denies that we are descended from Adam. They will say we are descended from a common ancestor. This common ancestor, of course, existed about 1 million over years ago. And that we are really Homo sapiens. They use terms like that, the Latin terms. But we are not Homo sapiens. We are children of Adam. The Quran says that. The Quran says that we are all descended from that ship that the Prophet Noah, where it landed, yes? And so, in other words, we as Muslims, we obviously have to follow what the Quran says. We can't it doesn't matter, we can learn anthropology, but we learn it precisely to know these things, to know the difference, to know also why they are denying a lot of these things. Uh, Actually, if people, if they have a clear understanding, there's somebody writing, for example, hadith. They quoted the hadith from the Prophet. They quoted as if they quoted from exactly who is reporting, by Abu Dawood or by this or by that. And yet they started later on quoting from, say, an American well-known person, as if that American well-known person is also saying the same thing as that hadith. You see? Yeah. In one of the hadiths, I noticed that comparison with somebody called Albrecht Dürer. I know who is Albrecht Dürer is. It's a painter. Yes. But what has the hadith got to do with him? You see, therefore, this sometimes it's just that. And the people, and there's a Chinese also, they think, oh, this is a Chinese philosopher. They know. I think they must have studied it in Michigan or in Detroit, where they come from. A Chinese philosopher, colonial. And what did he talk about? Maybe, if there's the hadith, of course, said the mutu or qabla anta mutu, isn't it? But then that's, they will say, well, yeah, this Chinese, I know, said there are two kinds of death. Of course, what they mean is they use the word forgetfulness. The fun is, he said, when the person first dies. Then the second one is when all people who have any contact or known that person, wherever he might be, and after how many centuries, when that person dies, then he is completely, But this is nothing to do with hadith. And it is false wisdom. Sometimes the Chinese talking about their false wisdom. And I hope that I'm not, Your Excellency, it's all right. I hope I'm not. I'm not. Oh yes, yes. About tolerance, I was saying before, the samaha is not the same as tolerance. Tolerance means to tolerate. It means you don't like it in your heart, but you're forced to. You allow the person to know, but in your heart, that's what toleration means. But we are using the word samaha. But samaha is not like that. Samaha has a sense of, what shall I say, pity, a sense of like, pity that the person cannot see and cannot have the same kind of happiness as you. Yes. So in other words, there is no meaning of looking down upon, whereas the word tolerance does have that meaning. Things like this, of course, we have to answer. We have to answer. We have to answer. The same, for example, they accuse us Muslims, they accuse Islam of women, how we look upon women. Nobody answered this. But in my book, that green book, I did say that, on the contrary, Islam is the only religion that raises the woman up to to such heights that even God says that, you know, as-Safa wal Marwa min sha'airillah. Whom is God referring to? He's referring to Hawa, indeed. No, not Hawa. Yes, Hawa. I mean, not Hawa. What's
Hajar.
Yes?
Hajar.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. It's referring to, no. Now, that means billions of Muslims have been memorializing her now until today. Yes, and yet they didn't realize it. Of course, it means that the woman also must be a woman of trust. Yes, that the woman, like she after all, she believed in the Prophet Ibrahim. She believed in her husband. And when he was left there in the wilderness, he asked the husband, he said, "Are you leaving me here? There's nothing here, the wild wilderness." So he didn't say anything. I said, "Are you leaving me here?" All he said was, he just made a gesture. And then he went. And then she got hold of him and said, "Did God tell you this?" And then he, yes, he just nodded his head. And then she said, "In that case," she said, I will be quite happy. You can leave. I'm sure God will look after me." You see, that kind of trust, that kind of woman, that is an extraordinary woman, to be left alone with a little baby. And at that time, that place that she was left would later on be Makkah. And that place, that very place would be the place where the Prophet Muhammad will be born. That very place is the place where the Kaaba would be built. You see, all this has got historical meaning. And we Muslims must know this, so that in case we have to talk about it, we can say something. Allahu Akbar. I'm so sorry. And so, in other words, for example, is there anything that you wish to say? You want to ask something that I don't know? Yes. Alhamdulillah. So, thank you very much. I hope that what I have said is not too tiresome to you to listen, and also repetition here and there. Man, please, I pray for your success sincerely, and I'm sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you great barakah for even contemplating this very idea of having to with the communication as well as trust among the Muslims. Thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.